Welcome to Empirical Animal Podcast Experiment. This episode will be just me solo, giving a little bit of a background story of where I come from and how I came eventually to the idea of making a podcast. And everything is tied with my very first documentary project that's been developed between 2016, shot in 2016 and published in 2018, and worth noting that that documentary in many ways could be called a failed project. It didn't make me famous, it didn't give me any recognition. Most of the friends I showed it to said it's incomprehensible, they can't understand what it is about. But the important part was how it impacted me personally and how it allowed me to grow. And that's really the premise of this podcast, to discuss stories of people who have really grown through deliberately creating these containers, incubators for growth, which is art projects. Before talking about the documentary we made with Stefania, I have to roll back to a previous project that I created, which was a musical instrument. Before even thinking about filmmaking, I thought that my future will be connected with designing and building very special, very unique musical instruments, and that was a hallmark of my achievement, which also marked the end of my short-lived career in the field. So that electric upright bass basically allowed me to unify all of my skills, all of my interests, all of my aesthetic preferences, and also the skills I had, which was that of woodworking, of crafting objects, of sculpting. It was at that point quite a pinnacle achievement for myself, and but at the same time, the pitfall was that it was keeping me away from the world. I was stuck, imprisoned in my little workshop, and that was the main trigger for my decision of moving away from that. So I wanted to experience the world. I wanted to travel. I wanted to connect with people, and I guess expose myself to novel experiences that I couldn't even predict what those could be. The problem was that I didn't really have anything so concrete to replace that passion. So there was a feeling of emptiness. In that period, I was living in Rome, and at some point I started thinking how I can possibly connect the desire to travel, to connect with people, with strong inclination towards visual arts, and perhaps also blend in the passion for music. And the conclusion I reached was documentary films allow that. That's the medium, that's the format which really allows for interaction and really crafting visually a story. So that was really interesting point for me when everything started coming together. Short after that epiphany, I left Rome. And I carried with me a very special book, which was, I'm pretty sure, the very first biography I read, and it was Dance of Reality by Alejandro Jodorowsky. Short after that, a documentary called Jodorowsky's Dune has been released, and it really landed in the perfect moment for me, because it was telling a story of a film that never came to happen, but there was an incredible adventure in the putting together the team and in envisioning how the film can be made. I immediately thought that that's the experience that I want to have. I want to experience that team building within the project, which was something completely new. I've always been developing these kind of artistic projects on my own. So it was quite a radical shift. But there was also a second film that heavily influenced me, and it was filmed by Michel Gondry, Is the Man Who Stole Happy. And that film was really particular because it showed me that really complex theories, ideas, concepts can be translated in a way which is extremely accessible, which is also fun, and I also noticed a very interesting thing where just the humanness of Chomsky was coming across, which is something that you wouldn't necessarily find in conventional interviews. So I felt that there was something really unique in that kind of curious, but at the same time naive approach to interviews. And around that time, I was moving to Berlin. It was 2016, and I was ready to give up on my artistic ambition, thinking that it's time to get a stable job and perhaps think about developing my documentary after hours. And what happened was that the very first day I found an opportunity to work as an illustrator, and the brief was that of creating around 100 of illustration in a comic book style that revolved around architecture. So one more time, I discovered that I had a very specific skill set, which was a perfect fit for the job. And well, the following of the story is that I raised enough money that could pay for making of the film. It was only possible because shortly before I worked with Stefania Carbonara on her project. So she invited me to collaborate, creating some animations for her short film, and it just worked. I knew she was brilliant. I knew she was an incredible, versatile filmmaker and a storyteller, and on top of that, she loved music. So I invited her to take part in this project, and in October, I believe, 2016, we went on this incredible journey. And so how my previous experience with making musical instruments, and that bass specifically connects with filmmaking, was that I haven't documented the process of making of that bass. And that really was a big disappointment for me, that I really couldn't prove how it was made. I couldn't prove how really simple, crude means were used to achieve something of that elegance. And so the idea was to capture the bass being played, and I thought that would be absolutely brilliant occasion to really experience that something that I built really lives on, and it serves a purpose, which really was something that in the first place drawn me towards musical instruments making. That musical instruments are objects, but they are also tools for making music, and that's really fascinating how unique of a tool a musical instrument is. And that was pretty much all I knew at that point. But there was also a question that I wanted to answer with help of people we'd be interviewing on the way, and it was revolving around really why we do what we do, because that was the main question I would be asked whenever I would bring up this instrument that I built. To me, it appeared kind of weird, really asking for justification why I would have committed to making that sort of a thing and work extensively for a long period of time on making that sort of object. And I simply noticed that it was happening so often that perhaps it's a good question to answer, and that goes, beyond musical instruments. So that was something that I wanted to investigate. What drives people to make things, and what keeps them motivated. As I was planning and mapping the film, starting from simple idea of going directly to Edinburgh, where Simon was based at that time, to film him play, I started thinking that it's really understanding that the meaning of the project was bigger for me personally. So I was trying there one more time to put together the fragmented, diffused sort of fragments of my life and reflect about how putting them together in something cohesive. So the solution for that was to visit all the places which were meaningful for me, where I lived, and interview my mentors, people who influenced me, and have the conversation about the creativity and motivation behind the work. At that point, approached fairly ad hoc and naively, but that was the rough plan, and to tell the truth, there was not much more. So Stefania had to patch the holes in my concept with her initiative, with her ability to work with the image. And as I was looking for a possible location for Simon to perform, I stumbled upon a picture in a sort of a warehouse, and through that picture I managed to connect with an incredible performer, an artist, Kasia, who took part in the movie as well, bringing her self-suspension skills and shibari art. We managed to put up this performance, which is a central part of the film, which was completely unexpected, unplanned. And as the filming came to an end triumphantly, I had to face the reality of going back. Now the hard work was going to happen, which was that of facing the editing. And at that point I had zero experience, zero knowledge of how editing works. And having several hours of footage was really overwhelming, plus countless interviews. So at that point my skill level just wasn't matching this grandiose vision that I had of making a feature, groundbreaking documentary. And so this process started stretching, and the big problem was that I was also insisting on doing it by myself, because I believed, in my arrogance, that that's the way to get the best results. And obviously it was exactly the opposite. I eventually realized that it's the same old story as before with the base I built. The reason why I was doing this work was to connect with people, to create experiences for myself, and to create a space where experiences can be shared. And that just wasn't the way. Once that became clear, I asked one more time Stefania to help. She stepped in and took over the editing, and that's really what made closing that project possible. And that experience really was a foundation for everything that I've been doing for this last couple of years in London. And through my work with emerging artists, documenting their creative process, I was able to observe how insightful the making process is, and capture a bit of that. And this podcast is essentially an expansion on the work that I've been doing. When I noticed that it's just not possible to faithfully represent the depth of that experience in a short film, so that's why I decided that the long form conversation are the best vehicle for communicating these stories. And so ever since I had this great interest to focusing mostly on the making process, but also from shifting away from making of the object and seeing it more as a shared experience. And that's really has been the guiding thread through my documentary work so far, and eventually leading me to starting up the podcast. And so with the guests that I invite here, I want to revisit their experience with projects that specifically impacted who they are. And that's because I believe that the actual product of any kind of work we do is not the work itself, it's really the person that we become. And so currently, the way I view my creative work is that it's a vehicle for connection, for authentic connection with others, rather than a process aimed at creating some specific landmarks. The next video I'm going to publish is going to be the very documentary I've been talking about here, which is called The Sound of All Sounds. And after that, we have a conversation with Stefania Carbonara herself, where we discuss a little bit more about our collaboration and the film itself. And there's a whole lot of new guests lined up, new conversations, and the focus, as always, will be how they've connected the dots and how the experience of creating things in many different ways, many different fields, really shaped who they are. So that's it for now. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next episode.